The average person is on track to spend 36 years of their life glued to their screen, with every scroll taking them that bit further from the person they could have been. One person who knows more about this than anyone is Nir Eyal, the behavioral designer who's helped some of the world's top companies make their apps and websites as addicting as possible. I mean, the guy quite literally wrote the book on it. Lucky for us, he also wrote the antidote to that, Indistractable. It's a book that I keep coming back to because the stuff just works, and the more I actually apply the stuff in the book, the better my life seems to get. So today we're going over the top lessons from the book to hopefully help us all make more time for the things that matter to us. So the first thing that Nir tells us in the book is that we have all gotten distraction completely wrong for years. You see, most of us would say that the opposite of distraction is focus, but he tells us that that's actually not the case, and instead the opposite of distraction is traction. So traction would mean anything that you do with forethought, anything you do with intention, and distraction is anything that then takes you away from that. The reason this is important is because if you don't know what you've been distracted from, then you haven't really been distracted. Now, whenever I get a book on distraction, I'm expecting it to tell me that I need to turn off my notifications, that I need to use website blockers, the amount of hot singles in my area you would not believe. But instead, Nir tells us that actually studies have shown that 90% of distraction actually doesn't come from these outside external sources, but rather they come from these kind of internal emotional states. In fact, he goes on to tell us that every action that we take actually purely comes from a desire to escape discomfort. Even the pursuit of pleasure is itself uncomfortable and we're trying to escape it. So the real important thing, if we want to avoid 90% of the time we get distracted, is we need to learn to deal with these uncomfortable emotional states. And Nir has a couple of suggestions that he has that have really worked well for me. So the first technique is to actually not fight distraction.
So sometimes we're addicted to a substance, or we're addicted to a particular kind of food or something like that, or even a video game. And as we try to resist the impulse to engage in that, let's say I need to study, but I want to play this game. And so 10 minutes go by and I'm resisting, and my desire for the game increases. Over time, as the desire increases, it becomes harder for me to study. And eventually what happens is I give in to the craving. So something subtle happens that we're usually not really aware of, is that we actually reinforce the power of the craving. By waiting for the desire for a particular thing to rise, what we're actually doing is training our brain that, oh, the only way I'm gonna give you alcohol is if you crave it really, really hard. And this is what's so confusing for people who are struggling to play fewer video games or get off of a substance, is they're actually reinforcing their brain's cravings in the same way that a parent is reinforcing a child's temper tantrums.
And so what Nir suggests is something from cognitive behavioral therapy known as the 10-minute rule. And that's where instead of saying, no, I can't get distracted, no, I can't do that thing, instead you say, okay, no, I can do the thing. I'm an adult, I can do whatever I want, but I will wait 10 minutes before I do it. And then that way you're kind of building this agency of going, okay, well, like I can do it if I want to do it, but I'm just gonna wait. And then over time, we extend that period. Now again, I want to point out, I'm not always the best at doing this, but every time I have done it, it's worked. See, the reason this works is because the body wants to stay at homeostasis. It wants to stay balanced, and it will get bored of whatever sensation you feel. You can't feel happy forever. You can't feel sad forever. Your body will always kind of want to change things. And so despite the fact that it does feel like it's going to last for the rest of your life in the moment, if you do just wait those 10 minutes, 99 times out of 100, the feeling will pass. But that said, avoiding these negative emotions is only useful if we know what we're supposed to do. So the next important thing is to make time for traction. And really here, what we're trying to do is we're trying to mark out the time that we actually want to spend.
You talk about building a schedule around your values. What do you mean by that? So what are values? I define values as attributes of the person you want to become. So the way you do that is that you turn your values into time. If you want to know what someone's values are, you don't look at what they say. What you do is you look at two things. You look at their calendar and you look at their pocketbook, right? You look at how they spend their money and how they spend their time. That's someone's values. So what you want to do is to turn your values into time by asking yourself, how would the person I want to become spend their time? And that's where those three life domains come in handy, right? Mm-hmm. How would the person you want to become spend their time taking care of themselves, taking care of their relationships, and taking care of their work.
So next we are on to blocking out the next 10% of the things that distract us, which is the external triggers, which is finally those hot MILFs in the area. They need to go. One statistic that I learned that absolutely shocked me is that 66% of people never change the notification settings on their phone. I mean, is it any wonder we're all so distracted? It's like holding up a big neon sign saying, please come and take my attention away. I actually made a whole video talking about all the different ways that you can kind of hack back these external triggers on your computer and things like that, which is over here. But the main thing you want to do is go into your phone and turn off almost all notifications. If someone needs you, they can phone you. You're not fucking Jason Bourne, okay? There's not going to be an emergency where the president needs your help right away. So the last idea is to prevent distraction with pacts. Now this is definitely the most powerful idea from the book, and it's basically taking these kind of pre-commitments to force yourself to not do the thing in advance. And Nir explains that there are three main types. So the first one is the effort pact. Now this is where you're going to try and make it as difficult as possible to do the behaviors that you don't want to do. So again, a common one that I use is things like app blockers and website blockers, something like Opal or Cold Turkey. So basically, if the option's not there to kind of get distracted, you're going to get distracted less. The reason this works is because we humans, we're so lazy. We're so lazy. I don't need to tell you. We're the scooter people from WALL-E. So we're always going to go for the path of least resistance. So again, we want to make the things we want to do as easy as possible and the things we don't want to do as difficult as possible. And then we will kind of naturally just go towards the thing we want over time. The next thing is the price pact. Now, the price pact is very powerful and it works very well. The idea here is that you literally put money on the line. So you want to do a behavior, you put money or you put a consequence on the line for not doing it. You literally punish the idea of not doing the thing you say you want to do. The famous example from the book is Nir has this burn or burn technique where every day he has a deal with himself where he either exercises to burn some calories or he has to burn a $50 note that he keeps on his dresser. I've done this in the past for things like bets to do with working out, with making videos, things like that. And I will tell you, it works extremely well. But again, Nir recommends doing this last. And I think the reason is because if you jump to doing this first, you kind of resent the idea that you're doing the thing. You know, you feel trapped in the idea. Like I've done it with working out, and working out then became a chore because if I don't work out, then I'm gonna lose money, and then it's like I used to enjoy doing it, but now it's like I'm doing a job, I'm doing a chore. But when you do the other kind of methods first, like you plan out your time, like you kind of approach the discomfort and you remove all the distracting external triggers, you realize that this is a thing that you want to do, and these guardrails were put there by you to get you to do the thing that you wanted to do in the first place. So definitely do the other steps first, but it is a really powerful way that you can do it. So the last type of pact is an identity pact. You see, through thousands of years of evolution, we've all been conditioned to want to stay consistent with the identities that we've held in the past. The Chinese Communist Party actually used this to great effect to get tons of Americans to turn on their fellow soldiers during the Korean War. They would basically get them to slowly make these little actions to commit to the idea that they were conspiring with the Chinese, like getting them to write down that America's not perfect, or getting them to list some of the problems that there were with America. So rather than beating them, they would just get them to slowly engage in these behaviors over time. And then over time, they would start to identify more with being people who conspire with the Chinese, who turn against their fellow soldiers. That would make them engage in more and more espionage on behalf of the Chinese. So this idea is super powerful. Another really good example is through religious tradition. Like Muslims don't struggle to not eat pork. And that's crazy because pork's delicious, you know, but it's just something that's hardwired in them. If you say I'm not a smoker or I'm a non-smoker, it's so much easier to not smoke, you know. And so Nir suggests that we take on these identities of behaviors that we want to have. I found a really good way of kind of reinforcing these identities from the writer Dickie Bush. Yes, that's a real guy, and that's his real name. But what he suggests is having a note in your notes app on your phone with the kind of different behaviors, the different identities that you want to hold. So whether that's a productive person, an athlete, someone who's healthy, that kind of thing, even like a good partner. you go in and every time that you engage in one of these behaviors, you write down what you did so that you can always kind of come back and remind yourself, oh yeah, like I guess I did wake up early to go to the gym. Oh, I guess I did go and like cook dinner for my partner, you know, and then over time it becomes easier and easier and easier to kind of remain consistent with these actions because it's already an identity that you hold. If you like this video, YouTube thinks that you're going to like this one over here, or perhaps over here. I can never remember which. And YouTube knows all.
Like, ride with me if you ride with me, you can slide with me if you feel like 550 on the 5 sticky, come get high with me. That's a